Hi, this is Grant Abbott speaking. This is just a quick Hi, this is Grant Abbott from Abbott and Mourly Lawyers, and we're just looking at how to upgrade a discretionary trust deed. Importantly, when you do go through that upgrading process, you must be really careful to first locate the prior deed. And if you don't have that, then I suggest you contact Abbott and Mourly Lawyers, and we can do up a special deed of lost deed and replace the rules. Otherwise, what we need to do is effectively go through the process of seeing what the existing deed says in terms of varying, amending, or upgrading the deed. So let's just go down and have a look at some of the particular issues before we jump into what the deed is, and then I'll build one on the LightYear Docs site. So the first thing is upgrading a discretionary trust. There's been much discussion for the last 30, 40 years that potentially a deed upgrade may be a resettlement. But the Commissioner has knocked that on the head. Sorry about I think it's actually 2012/21 in tax determination 2012/21, where he basically states that you can amend any feature, including appointor, trustee, beneficiaries, vesting, as long as it doesn't extend the existing vesting date beyond the rule of perpetuities, dependent upon the state in which the deed is set out. Now, the only time there will be a resettlement is when a subtrust is built out of the discretionary trust. For example, the trustee sets aside a home and it's for the sole use of beneficiary X. Now, that generally is not going to be the case, but just watch out for that. So importantly, we need to review the trust deed. We need to see who actually is the power to upgrade the deed. Do you need the trustee? Generally, yes. Quite often, do you need the principal, appointor, or guardian? I would say always it doesn't hurt to have those people providing their consent. There's been a number of issues going down the track where improperly upgraded deeds haven't had the principal appointor or the principal appointor have complained. So it's best to get everyone's consent, maybe even the principal beneficiary. So it's important to get the deed out, look at the variation clause, which I'll do in a second, and see how the variation works. Now, if there are any concerns or you'd like to get legal sign-off in relation to discretionary trusts, which quite often is the case for many accountants, and particularly if you've got some very old deeds, then it's important to contact lawyers Abbott and Mourly. We can review the deeds, and you might have a number of deeds, and provide a quote for them or a bulk quote to upgrade all of your deeds. So let's move on and have a look at a clause here. So this is a fairly recent one. So you can see here it says variation, but you might find amendments instead. So subject to any specific restrictions in any clause, so we have to have a look at that. The trustee may revoke, add to, release, delete, or vary all or any of the trust powers or provisions contained in this deed, or any trust powers or provisions contained in any revocation, addition, release, deletion, or variation made from time to time. May declare or nominate any new or other trust powers or provisions concerning a trust fund or parts of it. So where we declare new or other trusts, then obviously that's going to be resettlement. So essentially what we've got is a power there to revoke the whole deed and put it in a new place. But obviously there might be restrictions in some of the clauses as to what can or cannot be revoked. Add to, release, delete, or vary any of the trusts. However, 8.1, the trustee shall not have any power to revoke, add to, release, delete, or vary any of the trust powers provisions so that the settlor or his personal representatives or any corporation trust in which the settlor or his personal representative has any actual contingent beneficial entitlement may acquire beneficial interest in the trust. So essentially this is one of the reasons why we have settlors in Australia to set up the trust, and they're only minor. And this clause is actually just going to say, look, we realise that the role of the settlor is only minor, and we don't want to put them back into the fray of things. So that whoever was a settlor, whether it's the accountant or whatever, can't really come back and take control of that trust. 8.2, no such revocation, addition, release, deletion, or variation shall be valid. It would have effective infringing the law against perpetuities. That's the 80-year rule. So we need to ensure that the vesting, as the Commissioner said in TD 2012/21, sits within the original 80-year rule, unless it's South Australian, where there is no rule against perpetuities. Finally, 8.3, the trustee must obtain the prior consent of the principal. Remember the principal for any revocation, addition, release, deletion, or variation to clause 10. Clause 10 was actually the appointment of the principal. So again, it doesn't hurt to have the principal, etc. Nothing in this clause 8.3 affects the power of the trustee in respect of any other provision of this deed. So that's fairly important. So we've got a pretty stock standard one. Let's just jump out of there and then move straight into the LightYear Docs site. So we go down to documents, we go down to trusts, we go down to, let's say we're just doing a simple trust. So standard discretionary trust. Here's a vesting of a trust if you want to wind it up. Upgrade of discretionary trust to a LightYear Docs strategic discretionary trust. Now I'm on the strategist, membership, so this is going to cost me nothing. This is part of my subscription. So we're going to do Smith the upgrade. So we go in and we have a look at the clause. This puts me into what we call the I-frame, which is just the frame around our legal system. So using exactly the same legal system as Abbott Mourly does, and that will come up, and essentially we've got the Smith deed upgrade. Definitely for this one, use the Abbott Mourly, so AM001, as you can see there. So the general, so the Smith family discretionary trust. When was the original trust established? So we go and have a look in the prior deed and find out it was established in 2012. The date of the deed of variation, well, let's say it's going to be the client's coming in on this Friday, the 5th of March, in order to sign. It's in New South Wales. Now, what we're doing here is we're actually upgrading all the rules that exist in the current deed and replacing them with the LightYear Docs rule. So one of those is when it does vest. So that's at the end, do you want to have a charity or not? If not, then you can just go non-applicable, or you might just say RS. If the client wants RSPCA, New South Wales. So that's in the event that there's no principal beneficiary, any of their bloodline left, so that the last man standing is the RSPCA, which is very unlikely. Now we have to go in and have a look at the rule number that we're going to use. So going back here, you can see it's 8. So 8.1. So rather than doing 8.1, let's just put clause 8, because that then brings 8.1, 8.2, and 8.3. So we just put 8 in there. Now, has the trust been varied in the past? If it has, then we need to also look at the prior ones and put in there. So what we need to do is look at if it's been varied before, the last variation. Now, it may mean that we might need, if there's been lots and lots of variations in the past, it might be worthwhile to go to Abbott Mourly Lawyers just so they can check through the variations have been done validly. But if it's a simple one, then we can just simply go no. If we go yes, then obviously put in the dates of variation. So who's the trustee? In this instance, we go in and have a look at the deed. It's Smith nominees. We need to be careful too if there's been a change of trustee in the past to make sure that that is valid. We put in the registered office address for the company, which is quite often the accountant's address. New South Wales 2000. We now find who are the current directors. So we've got 2 directors here. We've got John Smith, and I've also got Sally. So far, so good. Now, are they going to sign? Absolutely. Remember, we want everyone to sign. Now, the appointor, is there an appointor? Now, in this instance, there's no appointor, but it's the same as the principal anyway. So we go yes, the appointer is an individual, and we find out it's John Smith, and that's 5 Smith Street, Sydney, New South Wales, 2000. The beneficiary, are any of the primary beneficiaries an individual? Yes. Are any of the primary beneficiaries a company? Now, if you've got an existing bucket company, you can go yes. Are any of the primary beneficiaries an incorporated association, which would be, for example, an RSPCA or a charity? And we're going to go no there. So you don't have to put the primary beneficiaries, are included, but let's go down. So we've got John Smith, and that's 5 Smith Street. Now remember, the commissioner allows us to make changes. So if we wanted to, we can also add, for example, Sally Smith as the primary beneficiary. Now I can just take that address, that will go in there, and I'll just change that to Sally. And then corporate beneficiary, so we've already got one there. So this will actually insert it directly into the deed as a beneficiary. So again, we put in the address there. So 5 Smith Street. And then that's essentially it. So let's go and have a look at what's required. Now you'll see when we come out, we end up with a deed of variation. And you don't need, the deed of variation is a contract under equity whereby all the trustees and appointors all sign off as part of this process. So let's just go down and we'll open this up. And that's just generating for us. And then we're basically off and up and running there. So it's a fairly simple document for us to utilize. And here we go. So unfortunately, my internet's a bit slow. So let's have a look at the discretionary trustee. Abbott Mourly, discretionary trustee, variation of the Smith family, discretionary trust of the strategic discretionary trust. Now, instead of having trustee minutes around establishing this deed, the problem is when we have some ancillary materials like trustee minutes, the danger about that is effectively it may derogate or denigrate from the actual deed upgrade. So we want to make sure that this deed is the sole upgrade here for us, or the sole purpose. So you can see here we've got the trustee, the appointor, which is John Smith. Recitals, the trustee established a trust known as the Smith Family Discretionary Trust. The appointor and the trustee have agreed to vary the trustee. The variation of the trust rules meet with the Commissioner's guidelines. There's no resettlement. All of those, so effectively as part of the operative provisions, replacement of trustee, rules pursuant to no resettlement law. So we then go down and then we go straight into the deed itself. So effectively this whole deed of variation acts as a consent from the trustee to vary as well as the appointor. So when we go down through here, you've got the appointor, you've got the beneficiary, child, the primary beneficiary, etc. And you'll see that we then go through this process. Here's the Smith Family Discretionary Trust. The beneficiary of the trust shall comprise the primary beneficiary and their spouse. What we did here as well, we've got both John and Sally Smith. And by doing that, it means that in the end, if Sally takes control of the trust, or more importantly, John does, and they get divorced, then you can find John can actually add the spouse as well. Any child, grandchild or great-grandchild of the beneficiary, and that's why sometimes we leave the spouse out or add them as delete them as a beneficiary. You've got the corporations there, so specific, and it can be and any other company, secondary trusts, superannuation funds, benevolent objects, additional beneficiaries, deletion, and then we can just go down there. Income of the fund, how it's to be allocated. We then obviously go into streaming. So again, this has been done recently, so it's a very strong deed. We go down and let's have a look at what the clauses here are in terms of varying, which is fairly useful. So there's winding up of the trust. So again, remember we've got RSPCA here in New South Wales. Let's go and have a look at our variation clause. So notices and service accounts, and it should be here you've got amendment at any time from time to prior to the termination date, which is the vesting date of the trust. The trustee with a written consent of the appointor for the time being made by deed, or to vary or revoke any trust provision here other than this clause and clause 7A, but not so as to benefit the settler, or appoint a resettler of the trust fund, except to the benefit of the settler or any part thereof and income arising therefrom the matter. So again, that's a fairly open one there as well. So so this clause, so the amendment clause goes through, which is important, so that stays, and clauses 7 and 8.1. So when we go down there, you'll find that will be in relation to, so clause 7 is the appointment and removal of the trustee, so that's the power in the appointor, and then 8, more than one person being trustee. So decisions are made by the majority. So effectively those ones are effectively not revoked if you're trying to upgrade our deed to someone else's deed. But essentially that's it. We then go down to the end, and then we find here that we've got the trustee and the appointor. I would always get the appointor to sign off on that, and that's fairly important. One element there that I do need to note, and I will be changing now, is that when we go through our interview, if it's a principal or guardian or appointor, we'll actually put that in the place so that the principal becomes the appointor, etc.